Supreme Court, because it's the full court that hears the grand jury applications, not a court of appeal. Hang on, wait a minute. What?
Just a suggestion. You've got our email address. Why don't you send out a few rough drafts on email?
Oh, please, Collar, don't download them. I like walking in the paddock. I've told everybody, don't email me because I won't answer you.
No,
but, please, we can put it on our website as a pro forma, or find it in some of them other websites that were listed there as a pro forma. It's to Chris Maxwell, President, Full Court of the Supreme Court of Victoria, 450 Little Bourke Street, Melbourne, and say to him in that letter, we have now become aware that you've been concealing serious indictable offences in relation to your court not hearing those matters. Please reply to us within 7 days in writing. Always close out your thing with a time span. Otherwise it's open-ended. It's not a legal letter.
Send it registered mail or...
Oh, would you?
Yeah.
If it's not registered, it's going straight in that shredder. Hang on, one at a time, please. You. Beg pardon? Wouldn't have a clue. Wouldn't have a clue. But what I'm saying is, deal with this graciously, because you're dealing with the biggest issue ever come into this country in law. And if you don't deal with it properly, you're going to cause a massive amount of trouble that you wish you didn't cause. Deal with it properly. There are the correct people to talk to and the incorrect people. Sorry.
You mentioned the question of Constitution earlier. Which one was that, and what is the current validity of the Queensland 2001 Constitution Act?
In what way? In which act? The Queensland Act?
The 2001 Queensland Constitution Act.
Okay, let me give you a point here. Remember I said Section 51 of your state constitution? Sorry, Section 53. Now, Section 53, when you track that back, when did they breach? I'll tell you when they breached. They breached at the State Request Act for the Australia Act. Now, it actually says that any legislation created after, if you're in breach, is no law at all. So have I answered your problem? Go back to 1984 to the State Request Act from Queensland to the UK and see if it breached Section 53, because that man was correct before when he said there's no statute bar on fraud and there's no statute bar on treason. Do you know what a statute bar is? That means you have a certain amount of time to file, 6 years as usual. If it's outside of 6 years, it's what's called statute bar. Fraud does not have a statute bar. You can prove it from 30 years ago. Treason does not have a statute bar. The man was totally correct. So you're dealing with things that if you track back, you'll find the breach in Queensland was in your State Request Act. It breached Section 53. And start looking at that. Because you're going to find the same problem. There was 3 state constitutions that needed to be abided by at that. There was Queensland at Section 53, there was West Australia at Section 73, and there was New South Wales at Section 7. And then any one of those would have activated Section 128 of the Commonwealth one. And it didn't do that. So if you read Section 6 of the Australia Act, always work 2 sides of an argument. It's valid, it's not valid. And show the court both sides of the argument. Sorry. You?
I just want to clarify something that I'm not used to going to talk too much. You do an Acts Application Act, Chapter 8, as you probably aware of, it states if there's any state law which is inconsistent with the Commonwealth, it's invalid. And a lot of people find that the judge will throw a state constitutional law to us, and if it's in conflict with the Commonwealth, then the Constitution actually says it's invalid and it can't be enacted. So a lot of people get confused when the judge throws the state constitution to us.
In relation to the Imperial Acts Application Act, have you got the speech that the Lord Chancellor did in Canberra on Magna Carta?
No.
Get that speech. because they brought the Lord Chancellor from England to do what they call the Magna Carta inaugural speech a couple of years ago. They did it in the big Parliament, the big room there. And what he actually said in a portion of that speech, he said, any state that does not have the Imperial Application Act has the whole of Magna Carta by inherent law. That's a big statement. So what he was doing by dusting off Magna Carta was also reactivating the Imperial Acts Application Act. Now here's my question. Anybody cut us out from the UK? Well, if you go and read the Australia Act, it did it for you. Are you aware of that? So the Australia Act, it's actually a de facto republic. But the problem is, they need you to get that other document off the table to clean up all the transgressions. Excuse the expression. Would you be silly enough to let them do that? Not after you've found out what you now know. I don't know what you're going to do. You can write to Chris Maxwell. You can put all your senators on facts. You know, don't say, look, we consider you to be a ratbag, etc., therefore you're guilty of this, that and that, whatever. Do a proper legal letter with a bit of decorum and give it to them correctly. A fax with a confirmation slip. If you're going to fax, have a confirmation slip. Without that, there's no proof that fax went out. If you're going to email, I don't know what confirmation type you're going to get, but registered post, even if it left tomorrow, it would not get there till Monday, and they may not be sitting on Monday. You may find your Parliament prorogued over the weekend. Do you have another question?
Yeah, could you, someone suggested before, I think, if you not actually format a letter, but maybe in your website, if you summarise the points that one should make in such a letter, because you're obviously gifted with all that, with the points to be brought up. If you can maybe summarise some of these points that we should bring to their attention and the we should bring to their attention. Not that it's your letter, but not that you're giving legal advice, but maybe summarise the points.
No, I'll do that. No. Now I'm going to close here. I'll give you the grace of answering it. You're first, you're second. You first. Just stand up a minute.
The first one is, if you send it by registered post, how do you prove that the contents were sent?
You don't. They're what you call, who you sent it to is deemed in law to be the person who accepted it and read it. So it doesn't matter if the CEO didn't give it to them. It was addressed, don't address it to an office, you address it to that individual. That's why I'm saying in that case, address it to Chris Maxwell, because he's the president. So you're not addressing it to the full court of the Supreme Court, that's actually an office. You're addressing it to the individual, and it's the individual that's accountable. For instance, if you subpoenaed that individual in front of a grand jury and said, what did you do with the document when you received it? If he says, I never got it, but there's clear proof it was sent, then the jury is quite within its rights to say you're lying. Sorry, no, the lady in the red first, didn't you?
Brian, I'm a novice at this, and I'm sure I'm thinking of so many Australians. But I wanted to know, is it true that Anne Blythe was charged with treason by a group of people in Clifton, or is that a furby?
At this point of time, I've got nothing to do with Queensland legals. So I don't know if Anna Bligh got charged with treason, but first off, I would ask if she did, what was the offence or what you call the element that constituted the treason?
It was in connection with the Constitution, and look, I must admit I've probably put my head in the sand, and I didn't pursue it, but I had an email to that effect.
Okay, let me help you here. If the lady is going back to this man's issue, that wherever someone has been charged with treason, it's still live until it's heard. Now, the only jurisdiction that can hear that charge, got nothing to do with the Queensland courts, it's got nothing to do with the High Court. Whoever laid that charge should file it at the full court of the Supreme Court of Victoria to be heard by a grand jury. The more pressure they get down there, sooner or later these judges are going to say, if we don't hear this, we're going to get charged by these Aussies. While that document sits on the table, the UN can't show its hand.
We don't want.
And that's the point I'm making when you start mucking around with that document's on the... I'm not interested in the document, I'm interested in what's coming in the door when you take that document off the table. That's the point I'm making. Now, sorry, this lady here.
Brian, with respect to what this gentleman was asking, when you send registered post, you can tick and have confirmation receipt sent back to you.
No, well, I'll help you there. The best document I've found is what the post has got, what's called Platinum Post. They've got two satchels. One's a 500 gram one, the other's a 3 kilogram one. It's trackable anywhere in Australia and it must have a signature at the other end, and it's a next morning delivery anywhere in Australia. And you get to keep the receipt, so at any time, anywhere, you know what happens to that document. It's a very good document. Sorry.
What I've done in the past was email, fax and registered letter the same one, and just one first to go, first to the other. So.
Well, you're experienced. You're not a rookie. Sorry, next lady. Well, first off, let me answer that question. If they prorogue the Parliament on Saturday, you've got 42 days anyway before you enter a polling booth. You can do a lot in 42 days. Next question, please. And then, can we finalise?
Can I send a piece of paper around those people that would like to give me your email address, and besides your email address, if you want to get together to work on these letters and discuss it to make sure we get the papers right, just put a tick on there and maybe leave a phone number or...
Okay, what this man is saying is he will be a coordinator to try to put that together, which is a very good suggestion. So anyone who wants to see this man after, is that okay?
Well, I'm just going to save time by just sending a piece of paper around those people.
Oh, well, no, let them just come to you. And then...
Will take too long to get here.
No, you just sit over there, they'll come to you when we finish this meeting. Now, what I was going to say is, please, I don't like to shut meetings on whatever, but can we finish... Ray's just sort of saying there's a couple of CDs here from the last lecture we did, which has gone onto the web. See Ray for these. Now, what I was going to say is let us finish with two more questions. This man, stand up, please.
What role has Bob Brown got in all of this?
Well, Bob Brown is the leader of the Greens. And he's also the senator who introduced the plebiscite bill. But here comes the question. Let's assume you're Bob Brown, sitting in the Senate. Is that okay? Let's assume this man is a senator from Western Australia. It's now 2005. Did this man reveal to the electorate of the state of Western Australia that the Crown is gone when he put up his hand to be elected or nominated as a senator? Did you? Didn't you tell the people? Now, first off, is that fraud? Is that treason? Is it the concealment of treason? Now, then he gets on an aeroplane and he goes over to Canberra and he sits beside you, Bob Brown, in the Senate. Did he just taint the Senate with treason? That's section 44, subsection 2 of the Commonwealth Constitution that says any person attainted with treason is incapable of sitting, Bob Brown and you, please leave the House. That's the law. Is that right or wrong? And let's go back. Who selected you to sit as that senator? You did, on the panel. Well, we've got him too. That's the law. What I'm actually saying is, do you know your law? Well, here's a farmer giving you a law degree, lesson. That's the stupidity of it. But, so now I'll ask you your question. What is Bob Brown's legal capacity to sit there? Amen. Is that a good answer to your question? Well, you put him on legal notice tomorrow and say, Bob Brown, we know exactly what you've breached and you're disqualified from re-sitting, and we will address every day that you did sit illegally. and he's got the biggest problem that's just walked in his door. Why? Because you